Arratsaldeon guzti.
Good afternoon and welcome to the second day of video Zinemaldia and Technology. Yesterday, on the first of the 2 days of the event, we talked about cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and facial animation. Today, we are going to focus on 3 other interesting topics like blockchain, drones, and virtual reality. We will end the day with a panel discussion on the future of our industry and of cinema. Today, we also have set up a translation system in the room. And for those of you who follow us at home, there are different streaming channels available in different languages. And the chat is also available. And now he's repeating in Spanish. Good afternoon and welcome to the second day of our event. Yesterday, on the first day of our event, we talked about cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and facial animation. Today, we are going to focus on 3 other interesting topics: blockchain, drones, and virtual reality, and the future of cinema. I was saying in Basque that the format we're going to use today will be the same as yesterday. For those of you here, we have interpreting systems set. And for those of you following us on streaming, you have different streaming channels in different languages, and the chat is also available. Without further ado, we are starting with our first speaker of the day. This first conference is titled Blockchain, an Ally to Achieve Transparency. With us, Oscar Laje, Manager of Cybersecurity and Blockchain in Techonology, and Irina Albita, co-founder of FilmChain. Remember that FilmChain was the winner of the Startup Challenge of Zinemaldia Techonology 2020. Oscar and Irina will analyze the importance of transparency and traceability, and how important these processes are, how blockchain supports these processes. This presentation will be in English.
Is blockchain an ally for transparency? We welcome Oscar Laje, Head of Cybersecurity and Blockchain at Zinemaldia, and Irina Albita, co-founder and co-CEO of FilmChain. Oscar and Irina will analyze the importance of transparency and traceability in data transfers and how blockchain favors these processes. So we have Oscar and Irina online, so they should be on the screen. Hey, Oscar. Hi, Irina. So,
hey.
So we have Oscar
Hello.
here from the Basque Country, but I believe that Irina is connecting all the way from New York. So thank you to you both for the efforts, for being with us today. So as we did yesterday, we'll give you like some time for your masterclass, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll open a 5-10 minute window for Q&A. So we're very much looking forward for your presentation, and yeah, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Night, for the presentation. Thank you to the organization for giving me the opportunity to share these minutes with you and with Irina. That is a top one in the world of blockchain applied to this audiovisual industry. Now we will start with speaking about the blockchain technology and how this technology impact to specifically to the audiovisual industry. When okay, you know me, I am a member of different alliances in blockchain, whatever cybersecurity. But the point here is blockchain. And the first of all is to define the blockchain technology. So if we speak about blockchain technology, we can define like a registry with a sort different with the typical registry that we have you are using today and until today. That there are registries that are only in one company. We have one registry, one database, or whatever, and one company that is the owner and manage this registry and can delete data and whatever in this registry. This is the typical situation until now. Okay, so with blockchain, we have another kind of registries that is managed and is shared by a community. We create communities that has only one registry that is shared and is explored by all the community. Okay, this kind of registry, the centralized registry, has some difference when we operate them. The first of this difference is that you can do it what you want in this registry, like the typical one when you can remove some data or whatever. In this case, you have to propose every little change that you want to do in this registry to the community, and the community will check your proposal and, if it is the case, accept your proposal. So if we have a consensus of the majority of these players of this blockchain network, and when we reach to this consensus because this proposal is okay and is current with the typical rules that we have established for our community, we reach to this consensus, and this this data, this new transaction in the database is cryptographically linked, and it will be unalterable for the history. So we have a decentralized registry that is shared by a community. We create community, and we have to operate this registry using or having the consensus of the majority of the network. And when we reach to this consensus, with these changes, this data will be unalterable for the next days, for the history of this registry. So blockchain has several values, or give us several opportunities in the business, in several industries, and of course for our industry. The first advantage, typical one, is the disintermediation of processes, business models, whatever. So we have this disintermediation between the parties, the typical platform schemes that we are accustomed in the internet. So we doesn't need those third parties to intermediate between us. We can interact between us without any kind of third parties, only with a technical third party that is blockchain. Okay, traceability is the second, perhaps the most important in our industry, because blockchain is a perfect technology to do the traceability of processes, assets, whatever, because we have every little change in the history of an asset or a process aggregated and agreed by all the community and shared with a common vision by all the members of this community. And when we take all this data, all the history, and we open to third parties, what we have, or what we are doing, is an exercise of transparency for those parties, third parties. Okay, so another property that we have taken advantage of blockchain is blockchain offers us, for the project, an integrated point of view for unsynchronized information for the community. So we have a common vision. All the community has a common vision, exactly the same vision in the same time, about the state of a process or an asset or whatever. And this information is a source of truth, because we can have this trustworthiness, we have finality, we know when we have reached to this consensus about something, and we have this non-repudiation, because everything in this registry has to be signed. Every proposal has to be signed by the actor, the participant that wants to register in the blockchain. Okay, so when speaking about blockchain for the audiovisual industry, we have to take in account that we have a new paradigm in the creation and distribution of media content. Perhaps later we can explain about this, but we are moving from physical to digital, and we have the streaming, we have a lot of creators of content, whatever. So how blockchain can help us managing this kind of decentralized creation of contents, distribution of contents, whatever. So the first point is the content registration. We can have a common registry in where all the participants in this value chain has a common vision about this, the origin of those contents. The second one that is quite interesting is the traceability. We can track the rights, the purchases, and the usage of any kind of media. Quite important. Imagine Spotify and Netflix, HBO, or whatever they are. Sometimes people are saying that perhaps they offer the stats that they offer are not okay, so accurate to the reality of streaming or whatever. But in the end, so traceability to track things is quite important. Remember, we have this kind of history of every process or the states of the assets perfectly agreed by all the members of the community. When another point is the disintermediation of the current platform business that are taking all the profits from the value chain. These intermediaries could be disintermediated by the blockchain technology. And of course, when we have all these properties or use cases, we can apply blockchain for the fraud detection or even the prevention of the fraud. Thanks to this common vision of the current situation. Okay, and lastly, of course, the last point is the data sovereignty. The data about our media, the media that everybody is producing. We can explain and talk about this later. So this is the what is blockchain technology, and in general the usage of this technology in the audiovisual industry in general. Okay, so now Irina, I don't know, Irina will explain about its project that was that is quite interesting. Irina is there. Okay, hello Irina.
Hello, everyone. Hola a todos. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And it's a pleasure today to speak with Oscar, who himself is like an amazing expert in the blockchain space. So I believe we have the presentation ready. Hello, everyone. We are FilmChain. We modernize payments in film and TV from viewers to content creators. We are a team of filmmakers and technologists. We are backed by Hearst Media, Techstars, and work with incredible academic partners, such as Imperial College London. Through our work, we have identified a number of problems in the film and TV industry. Film and TV participants struggle to understand how much they need to be paid. Payments get delayed and at times never reach them. And over again, we find out that companies in the sector struggle with manual, opaque processes. Many of them rely on Excel spreadsheets to run their businesses. Ultimately, it gets down to a lack of infrastructure. At FilmChain, we solve these issues with a scalable fintech solution. We offer instant access to money, data, and reports. We use blockchain smart contracts for revenue allocation, making the recording of revenues transparent and auditable. We unify the management of payment entitlements, providing a centralized single source of truth. And on top of that, offer analytics on the financial performance of titles. We're trusted by global clients, currently reporting and paying over 900 beneficiaries. And we are incredibly proud to be winners of the Zinemaldia Startup Challenge in 2020. We can't wait to be back in San Sebastian this year. FilmChain has essentially two products. The independent product, where we support production companies with a collection account management system. And on the other hand, we have the enterprise product, where we support larger companies such as broadcasters, networks, and studios with a royalties management solution. At the core of our product is what we call the waterfall calculation. We allow for any type of deal, as complex as it gets, to be added easily to the platform. We allow companies to simulate how future revenues may flow and be distributed. And once the deals are set up, the platform calculates entitlements automatically and reports accordingly. We have built a robust technology behind our product with top engineers and a lot of research and development. We use secure cloud-based technology, ensure transparency for smart contracts, and we're doing machine learning explorations for predictive analytics for film's performance. We are keen to connect with production companies as well as media enterprises, and we are looking to upgrade and future-proof their royalties management. Thank you very much. I'm leaving my contact here, and I would love to connect with as many of you as possible after the presentation. Thank you.
Interesting project. I love it. I think it's an example of how blockchain technology can be used to facilitate the relationship between the different partners in the ecosystem. It's very simple, but very effective, I think. So it is brilliant for me. All of this in a context in which the audiovisual and television industry, where the digitalization is having a strong impact. We have a Netflix, HBO, everything, but in general, this sector is having this kind of the digitalization, and in my opinion, we are moving from the physical to the digital industry, to a very digital industry. The basis of this new industry are digital. We are we are moving from the downloading things, not streaming, to this immediate content, media that we consume while we are watching another thing. So it's a very new world for me, at least. and where creators of the content are decentralized. Anyone with a device, with an internet connection, an internet access, an idea, and enough skills can create content, distribute media, and sometimes this content is quite good and can be used by a film creator or the TV or whatever. The contents are created, transformers, I don't know, compilation, compositions, etc. So I think that the right management is a chaos, or quite difficult, at least. The royalty distribution, as you know, is quite difficult. And in this context, there are a lot of companies using, perhaps in this digital world, using Excels or Excel spreadsheets and whatever internally in these companies. I don't know if you know something about this kind of internal digitalization of these companies or the sector itself, because you know better than me, for sure.
You are very right, Oscar. And what we are seeing is that there's a lot of technology on the screen. Visual effects, there's technology on each and every mobile phone. But there's not so much technology happening behind the scenes in the actual processes that a media company does. And as you said, from our experience, we've seen that from large to small, a lot of the companies continue to heavily rely on Excel spreadsheets. Now, with the big move of the technical giants coming into the media space, as well as with last year's pandemic, we are seeing a huge change of landscape that is forcing companies to look at ways to streamline their processes to be able to scale. So they're realizing that the only way to scale and grow their operations and companies is to actually put technology to best use internally for them.
Of course, of course. It's something that is, there are a lot of sectors that they are taking the digital technologies for offering a service, but inside they are still with the Excel and this kind of things, of course. They are, for people, the digitalization perhaps is not as easy as, I don't know. We were speaking the last day that there are a lot of confusion in the blockchain projects because there are a lot of projects that emit tokens, cryptocurrencies for the use of a platform. There are other blockchain projects that select to be operated by fiat money, the typical money, euro, pounds, dollars, or whatever. I don't know, in your case, you have selected, as I know, using the fiat money to operate between all the participants in the ecosystems. For me, is quite a very interesting approach and a smart approach. For people that they don't know, that a token, a cryptocurrency, a digital vouchers that can be exchanged for goods or services like cryptocurrencies. But these projects that are adopting these tokens that are native in blockchain and quite good to operate and to have this trust about the use and the spendings in these kind of tokens. The problem when a lot of times is that the user has to use a digital wallet to collect and to custody these tokens. They have to digitally sign all the transactions that they do using those tokens and protect and back up the private key that represent the user in the blockchain. So if they lose their private key, they lose the content of the wallet, their tokens that could be cryptocurrency, could be the utility tokens, but they have a lot of value. So how do you think about this ecosystem? Because typically for a blockchain project is, okay, to use tokens. This is what we have been watching the last 2, 3, 5 years. And how do you manage in film chain this kind of, you use tokens for your users, you use fiat money? How do you arrive this kind of challenges?
That's a very good point, Oscar. And the reality is that we did a lot of research and development, and we love tokenized solutions. But when we were talking with actual customers in the media space, with the typical production companies, producers, and enterprises, they are not ready to adopt a fully tokenized solution. So particularly as we deal with money, with euros, and we collect and allocate these payments, we couldn't expose our clients, first of all, to the volatility of cryptocurrency. That is a big challenge. And as you rightfully put it, we didn't want to expose them to the risk of them losing their hard or cold wallet in case they forgot their password or they forgot their wallet. So what we do is we record every single incoming transaction. So we use blockchain and the blockchain underlying technology at its core by recording every single transaction and royalty onto the chain. And this is very important because it becomes almost a mechanism of verification for the participants in the film industry. The film industry is one that needs to operate on trust. So the participants need to believe that the payments that have been coming in and going out are correct. And essentially, the blockchain for us operates as such a level of recording, a record of transactions. Okay. But when it comes to the actual funds, we continue to operate in euros, in dollars, and in pounds.
So it will be quite easy for the users. It's the typical platform for them, but with the trustworthiness of a blockchain rating where they can check, they can, make an assessment of what is being doing in all the collection and distribution of money in this case or whatever. So
that is correct, Oscar. Yes.
The usability of the traditional money, so and the benefits from the blockchain technology, isn't it?
Correct. So we are always looking forward. We are very optimistic about the future, and we hope that our clients at some point are going to also be interested in to start operating on cryptocurrencies. But we feel that this needs to be a step-by-step process. So in order for us to be able to offer a service that is relevant and important to them right now, ultimately, you don't build technology for the sake of technology. You need to build technology for people to actually use it. So we're only focusing on the benefits of the recording of the blockchain, and we've made the decision of not using crypto.
Okay, I think that perhaps in 2-3 years or whatever, people will the wallet will be more easy. The people will be more accustomed to cryptocurrencies, and then you can go a step further and give them the opportunity to work with Bitcoins, for example. That perhaps is an opportunity, perhaps for Latin America. Countries, they are quite accustomed using this kind of cryptocurrencies, the main cryptocurrencies, because they are less volatile than their money. So that it depends of perhaps here in Europe, the point is different, the adoption is different. But collecting money perhaps is the next topic, the crowdfunding using blockchain. I don't know, since the ICOs, the initial coin offering in 2017 was the fever of the ICOs, I think so. When these kind of ICOs, the initial coin offerings, were used to make the crowdfunding, like a crowdfunding mechanism over the blockchain, for blockchain projects mainly. And there are a lot of initiatives in the blockchain ecosystem launching ICOs, STOs, security token offering, and this kind of mechanisms to collect money. No? In the case of blockchain projects funded by those ICOs, it was quite natural because and they used blockchain technology. They create this this token for the funding the projects that will be later used by, I don't know, those tokens, or those cryptocurrencies, like the exchange of services that will be offered by this platform. Okay. Perhaps those tokens has sense, they will be used in the operation, but in the audiovisual industry, I don't know if there are some initiatives trying to use this kind of the same technology of ICOs or crowdfunding, etc., in order to collect funding for projects. I don't know if perhaps the technologies using this kind of mechanisms is an opportunity, as was said 4 years ago with the ICOs, that perhaps the long tail of producers or content creators, little content creators, or little investors that want to invest in a film, in a TV series or whatever, to invest in this kind of products that in the typical offering, they can access to this kind of services. I don't know if you know projects, initiatives regarding this kind of the use of blockchain for this crowdfunding. What do you have, your opinion about them? And I don't know. And if they are an opportunity for the long tail of investors and this kind of or content creators.
Oscar, absolutely. The whole ICO and offering tokens in return for money was at a huge hype in 2018, 2017, as you very well put it. This year, we have seen a new resurgence of the non-fungible tokens, the NFTs. Some of them have also been used for funding projects. At its principle, when it comes to us at FilmChain, we love the idea of a blockchain-enabled solution to democratize access to funding. When it comes to the media space, where you have independent film producers, where it's difficult to raise money traditionally for a project. Of course, such mechanisms like ICOs, NFT raises, STOs, did present almost a very tempting opportunity for a lot of independent producers. We have seen many projects come and go. Ultimately, we at FilmChain, we try to stay away from funding using blockchain to fund projects. We've only sort of focused on actually the royalties part and the participation management part of the solution with blockchain. However, there's definitely been a couple of projects that stand out, and one project that I've seen that has been successful is an independent film called Mad Heidi from Switzerland, where the producers have structured an equity investment where each investment is recorded on the blockchain. So the investor gets almost the certainty that if they put in 100 euros, their 100 euros is recorded, and once the movie starts making money, they will be able to get the return on their investment. But Oscar, I think it's my duty, and I always say that while it's incredibly tempting to use blockchain as a funding opportunity, we've also seen through different project experiences that these types of structures come with big legal costs for filmmakers to be able to do them correctly and successfully. So it's always very important to make sure that you abide the rules for investments that are within each country, each jurisdiction. And it's never just as easy as saying, here's my project, give me money. You can do that on Kickstarter, or you can do that on other platforms. But when it comes to giving equity, ownership to a project, that's when we always advise filmmakers to get advice from a lawyer.
Yeah, it's another step. Yeah, and the the security tokens are another, I don't know, level, and the responsibility and the traceability of these kind of things are in blockchain. It's a good opportunity. Technically, it's a good opportunity, but you need a lawyer, as you said. You mentioned the NFTs. The NFTs are the non-fungible tokens that are for the audience. In order to explain, perhaps they are a registry in a blockchain that certifies that a digital asset is unique, or it's a little series of only 10 units of this kind of product. The NFTs could be used to represent, I don't know, digital things like photos, videos, audio, or whatever. People have to know that the access to the original media is not restricted by the token owners. So there are a lot of people that think that I don't know, they make the purchase of an NFT token, and they think that all the copyright and the access to this photo or this video or whatever, that the token owner has the copyright, and this is not the case. This was like a collectible evidence of the ownership of this original token, and that's it. They are quite interesting. I was researching yesterday about the use of NFTs in the film industry, and I was looking at in May of 2018, the Century Fox partnered with Atom Tickets and released a limited edition of Deadpool 2 digital posters to promote the film in NFT. So in these years, in March, Adam Benzin entity became the first motion picture, the Claudem Lacham spectres of the show. This documentary was mint and auctioned as an NFT in Rarible platform too. So there are several other tentative projects and experiments using these tokens, but I don't know. I think that is a fashion that perhaps has arrived, the NFTs, and collecting money using these NFTs to the film industry. I don't know. But on the other hand,
Yes.
I don't know if you have a lot of time. I don't know if you want to mention anything about anything more about NFTs.
Ultimately, Oscar, we always really like the base or the concept of NFTs. I think we haven't seen any highly mainstream or successful NFT project yet in the film and TV space. But we do see that because the NFT is a certificate of ownership of a unique asset, we do see that there is a clear applicability when it comes to IP within the film and TV space. The way we actually do use NFTs within our own system, but it's one of those things where we don't actually it's just part of our technology stack, where we record ownership of each individual's entitlement with a unique digital asset. But I think we're going to wait and see. There's a lot more to see and discover in the NFT space.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Hi, Oscar.
Okay, I don't know if we have any more time.
Yeah, Oscar and Irina, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So like we've got
Yeah,
like a pretty
nice.
tight schedule today. So like if that's okay with you, we're gonna jump onto the Q&A round. Okay. So I'm not sure if there are any questions from the audience. ¿Alguna pregunta, galderaren bat? So it doesn't look like, but I'd love to ask you a couple of questions. So like, you know, Oscar and you, Irina, as well, you've been talking about the concept of decentralization, right? There is another term that is very sort of like common in the industry these days, which is the edge. So how do you actually match these two concepts, and what do they have in common? Like, can you explain to the audience, please?
Edge computing, or
yeah, the edge computing and the decentralization.
Okay, when we are speaking about the edge computing, the computing in the things and these kind of things, and blockchain, we have several research projects regarding edge computing and blockchain, using blockchain to I don't know, to see like a middleware of things that are connected in the edge, okay, in order to have the traceability and an auditable registry of the and evidences for a lot of industry. But now I can imagine how we can merge these kind of concepts. We can explain, you will speak about drones in the next sessions. We have been creating the identity for managed vehicles in blockchain. This could be an application. We have been working in this kind of application for in this case, for Airbus. And this was used to have an identity for drones in the urban spaces where we have to manage. Imagine an event like the Festival of San Sebastian, where in the future we will have a lot of drones trying to capture everything, the details or whatever, and then to manage the security of the smart urban spaces, we can use this kind of decentralized technologies to coordinate between these edge computing nodes that could be the drones. I don't know if Irina has a better answer for this.
No, it's very good, Oscar. I can definitely, it's hard for me to think about a particular film and TV application, but I can definitely think of an application such as cloud gaming. Because ultimately edge computing is all about bringing the computing power closer so that you improve on time. And it's something like Pokemon Go, that was a big game a few years ago, that could have an application with edge computing and cloud. Yes, so bringing location and bandwidth closer together.
Sure.
I'm also sort of not sure how to make the exact connection with blockchain technology at this point.
Excellent, Irina. So, and Oscar, thank you for the answer. I have one last question. So, Irina, you mentioned earlier that the industry is still using Excel spreadsheets, right? So now, like, how can a sort of like a producer or a production company get involved with film chain? How can you offer your services with them? So what's the approach?
It's as simple as them sending us an email, I have to say. We are not changing the internal processes, very, very difficult when it comes to a production company, let's say, or a media enterprise. So we are providing a more scalable solution for them to be able to perform the business and the actions that they are performing right now, but not using Excel spreadsheets, but using a much more scalable technology. So this was for us very important to ensure that the benefits of the technology can be easily applicable and that there are no big barriers to entry for an independent producer, production company, or a media enterprise.
Excellent. Thank you, Rina. So, if that's okay with you, we'll leave it here for today with you. So, thanks a lot once again for being with us. It's been a real pleasure. We hope to see you here next to us, next time. So, in the meantime, thank you very much once again, and see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
And hello to everyone.
Thank you.
Eskerrik asko, esan bezala, blockchain.
So now we go to blockchain. That's right, we're going to be talking about drones. We have John Peña, who is the founder of the company, the name of which is Flock, which is a London-based insurtech. And we also have Tom Wandsworth, who is the director of the multi-award-winning drone company, Bad Wolf Horizon. So they are going to be telling us about the latest technologies, drone technologies, and they will be talking about the effect all this has. So please, and John will be speaking in Basque language, and then together with Tom, they will both continue in English. So welcome from London. Thank you for being here. Whenever you want, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. And well, the truth is that I do not have much to add to this presentation. My name is John. I come from Aramaito, but I've been living in London for the last 8 years. I decided to create an insurance company in London. I saw there an opportunity for me. Mobility was already changing, transforming, and I saw that there was an opportunity to make an offer for citizens. I realized that there is more and more connectivity in our society, and there are connectivity vehicles. So let's take advantage of that mobility to try and give a better service to our users, so that our users can assess or measure the risks they have ahead of them. So our users can use their data and make their actions be a bit safer. Well, I am not the main character today. Tom is going to be, well, Tom is one of our clients, and he is able to do incredible things with drones. And we have thought that maybe it would be interesting to show you what he does with drones. This industry, it has been there for only 10 years. So it's very interesting to see its evolution as well as the opportunities it provides us with, for example, in the world of cinema. This was the introduction. I think that we have a couple of slides. Here you can see Tom Wadsworth. Tom, can you hear us? I don't know. Now we're going to continue in English.
I'm all good, thank you. How are you?
I'm totally confused because this is the first mixed reality conference I ever attend, and I can see a huge Tom on one side and a smaller Tom in another. So I'll try my best not to be totally confused today. But Tom, I just introduced myself in this beautiful language we've got, Basque, but I'm about to introduce yourself as well. Welcome.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. And I had no idea what you just said in Spanish as well, so.
I really hope the people here understood me. So Tom Wandsworth is the founder of Bad Wolf Horizon, which is a drone filming company, a drone production company, and I believe he's the founder of one of the most advanced companies in the UK. I think he's calling in from Cornwall today, which is a beautiful region in the southwest of the UK. And I think, Tom, you've got a long array of awards you've received lately. I just noted down 5, just because I had to pick some. But you've been named
30 under 30 of Cornwall, something I never managed to get myself. You've been named Southwest 42 under 42, although I believe you're very far from becoming 42. The best young business person of the year, incredible, and digital rising star also for Cornwall. So hats off for everything you've achieved in such a short time. But I really want to know a little bit more about Bad Wolf Horizon and how you came to starting it and what the vision of the company was.
Yes, that's a good question. Yeah, so my name is Tom Osworth. I run Bad Wolf Horizon, as you say, is based in Cornwall in the UK. We do everything from heavy lift drone services all the way through to VR content creation. And more recently, we've entered the world of first-person view drones, also known as FPV. We work in like the film industry, TV industry. We do a lot of music videos and sort of general business promotion as well. Yeah, I started the company about 4 years ago with the vision always being to do things a little bit differently. So at a time where pretty much anyone can go out and buy like a pretty decent drone off the shelf and learn how to fly it in a relatively short amount of time, I've always tried to push the boundaries of what is possible with drone technology to bring new services to our clients. And yeah, generally just having quite a good time doing it as well. Yeah.
What was the first moment when you realized that drones was a thing and that you could do something with them?
So I actually started off as like a ground-based filmmaker, which is a term that a lot of people find quite funny nowadays. So I started off making films on the ground, and that's where I learned a lot of the techniques that I learned in terms of using cameras. And as part of that journey, I hired in a drone pilot for one of the films that I was working on. And I was just like absolutely blown away by the quality of the footage that you can get. And this was probably about 5 or 6 years ago when drones were pretty rubbish. But I was kind of finally hooked. Wanted to take up drones and see what I could do with this technology myself. And then quite quickly found that I was quite good at it, and I was really just very, very interested in exploring this technology and finding out where it could take me and take my business. So yeah, I ended up dropping the ground-based filmmaking probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, just to focus and to specialize on drone technology. And yeah, it's going quite well.
I think saying you're quite good at it is too humble, and we're going to demonstrate it today. So what we're going to try to do today is just go through almost the history of drones. The commercial drone history is probably around 10 years old. I think DJI, which is the biggest drone manufacturer worldwide, a Chinese company, launched their first commercial drone in 2012. So that's only 9 years ago, and we're already talking about the history of drones, which is quite incredible. So what we'll try to do today is show everybody how there's actually a history of drones. We'll start with what we now call traditional drones, so those drones that were first launched to the market, quadcopters, if we can call them. I will then slowly change gear a little bit, and we'll see different ways in which these drones have been used. Of course, the technology itself has changed, and Tom, I hope, will show us how that hardware looks as well, to finally land in what we believe the bleeding edge of drone technology and how it is being used, not just for artistic filmography, but also for commercials and in a way more commercial setup as well. So with that said, Tom, I think we can launch with what I believe it is your 2020 show reel that's going to show us how you use this traditional type of drones. absolutely incredible, Tom. Like every time I see one of these videos, I just end up incredibly pumped and with a lot of energy, which is great. So 15 years ago, we would need probably a helicopter to do things like this and still be incredibly limited by what it could be achieved. But you probably have something right next to you that is the tool you use to record these videos. What do you use to make something as beautiful as that?
Cool, yeah, so I'm actually, you can't see it, but I'm surrounded by drones at the moment. But for the majority of the filming that we do, we use drones like this. So this is a DJI Inspire 2, which is available as both either like a solo operator, so I can be the pilot and camera operator, or those two jobs can be separated out. So I'm usually the pilot, and then a camera operator operates and moves the camera around separately. We do also have like a heavy lift drone service, but unfortunately that drone physically won't fit in this room, so I don't have that one with me today. The smallest drone in our fleet is this little one here, and although the camera is nowhere near the quality of the big drone that I just showed you, this is actually a sub 250 gram drone. And in the UK, that means that we can fly over people and over built-up areas and capture shots that the bigger one just isn't possible, because we have to maintain certain distances from people and properties and stuff like that. Yeah, so we've got quite a large range of drones in our arsenal, but these are all sort of the gimbal-based drones. So, as I say, the camera is operated on a sort of steady platform, and that's how we capture those sort of unique cinematic shots.
I've heard that those tiny drones are the way of avoiding all regulation. Is that true?
Yes and no. So there are definitely still restrictions on little drones like that. You're not allowed to fly in like no-fly zones. You're still not allowed to fly near airports and stuff like that. But it all comes down to the amount of energy that they can carry. So because it's so light, in theory, it means that if you crash into someone or something, it won't cause as much damage, which allows for a little bit more flexibility. Yeah.
So walk us through the process of actually capturing some of that footage. So I guess this is not just as easy as just showing up on stage and taking off. You probably go through a bit of preparation. When working with third parties or like external film directors, you probably have a bit of a briefing session. How does that process unveil?
Yeah, so I guess the first step is narrowing down which of the drones the director or director of photography is planning on using. So whether that means that we're using our heavy lift service and maybe we're sticking like a red Komodo on there or something like that, or whether we need to get around some of these drone law restrictions, then maybe we'll use the smaller drone, or that might be somewhere in between. But basically, all of the upfront preparation is to do with pre-flight planning and risk assessments, which is the sort of less glamorous side of what it is that I do. So I spend quite a lot of time, finding landowners' permission and trying to get permissions to fly in certain areas, and also trying to find those almost like loopholes of we're not allowed to fly close to people or buildings and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of fancy footwork that we can do to get around that. So for example, on the Inspire down there, we can use longer lenses, which means that we can get nice and close up to the action while keeping a nice safe distance. But yeah, there is quite a lot of planning that goes up front. And as I say, risk assessments as well to make sure that we keep everything safe and above board. Yeah.
So we're probably much better off by just hiring you than trying ourselves.
I think so, yeah.
Good, noted. Okay, so we're gonna change gear now, and we're gonna move on from those platforms, those drones you showed us. So the concept, I guess, is that drone is hovering somewhere, and you've got a camera that can move around, and we're capturing the footage we just saw. Now we're gonna move on to a drone that has a fixed camera. So the drone has to do all the movement, right? But what sounds like it is a limitation actually becomes a massive advantage. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's really quite an exciting and pretty powerful new technology that we're about to talk about. And in my mind, it's sort of like unlimited freedom of movement. And that means that you can put cameras in places that just haven't previously been possible and move them in ways that haven't been possible before without an infinite budget. So yeah.
So let's stop talking about it and just see what this technology allows us to do. Let's see video number 2.
Sounds good.
So I felt like I was flying, and I wasn't even touching or controlling the drone. How does it feel to fly one of this? Like, are you actually flying with it?
It's addictive, and it's something that you can get very hooked on very quickly. They're generally a lot more difficult to fly compared to traditional drones, mainly because of their sort of manual control. But because of their manual control, again, that means that we have that sort of unlimited freedom of movement. But what makes these drones different is that we actually fly them through a headset. So I'm actually wearing this during flight, which makes me feel like I'm sitting on top of the drone. So I think it's probably the closest you can get to the feeling of flight without leaving the ground.
This is probably a question you don't want to answer about how often you crash these things.
That's a good question, and probably more than you think, especially when you're first starting, because you're trying to get used to the manual control, but also because you're trying to get as close to things as possible to try and get the feeling of things rushing past you. You want to get as low to the water as possible and close to, I don't know, cliff edges or going through rocks, as you saw in some of those videos. Crashing happens a bit more often than you think, but that's just part of the process. You've got to risk it to get those incredible shots. So
man, that's the last thing you want to tell someone that runs an insurance company. So we haven't yet seen the drone. Can you show us what kind of drones you use for this?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of different types, but this is the basis of what an FPV drone is. So this is a quadcopter, so it's got 4 motors, and this is a 5-inch FPV drone. And it's called that basically because of the diameter of the propellers. The headset that you saw a second ago, I can see through this little camera here, and this footage streams to my headset during flight. And then the camera on the top here is what records the high quality footage. So these 2 cameras are kind of lined up so I can get a good feeling of what I'm capturing as I'm flying around. They're designed to be very, very fast and powerful and lightweight. And unlike traditional drones, there's pretty much no additional sensors or crash preventing sensors or anything like that. So they're very stripped back, very bare bones, but that means they can reach speeds of sort of 60, 70 an hour with a camera on top. So yeah, they're pretty powerful, and even though they kind of look a bit weak and kind of a bit like a toy, they could cause some serious damage. So that is the 5-inch FPV drone, and as I said, because of the manual control, we can use their maneuverabilities to do flips and rolls and dive down cliffs and things like that, which really allows for sort of unparalleled freedom of movement. But I can do better than that. So this is the latest FPV drone in the fleet. This is a 7-inch, so 7-inch propellers, and this is an octocopter. So it has the exact same flight characteristics as the 5-inch FPV drone there. There's the little camera up front, which I see my goggles. But this is flying a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera at the moment, but it can lift anywhere up to sort of 2.5, 3 kilos. So anything like a Komodo or something like that. We can get airborne, and we can get diving down cliffs and trying to get as close to things as possible, which might make a few of you a little bit nervous, but again, it's worth it for the shot, right?
Absolutely. So at what point did you realize that you could actually almost change gear and move from those quadcopters you showed us before to these new technology, and what was that transition process like?
So it's quite a long process from the very first time that I saw the first FPV drone video back in sort of late 2019. I saw that this was quite a fast-growing trend, and I could see the benefits of FPV drones. So I jumped on it quite quickly. Unlike traditional drones, you can't just go out and pick these off the shelf and learn how to fly these in half an hour. I actually did sort of 30 to 40 hours of simulator training, where you physically plug in the controller into a PC simulator and you fly around. You put maybe lots and lots of hours in. You crash lots and lots, but it's a really good way to learn how to fly these things and to sort of rewire your brain, which is definitely needed, because at some point it kind of clicks into place. But yeah, it takes a while to get there. Lots of crashing.
I'll definitely start with a simulator for now. But I find that this technology really comes to life when you start flying in very complex scenarios, when you start like trying to avoid cumbersome spaces. And I think you've done exactly that with the National Maritime Museum, and we've got a video that shows that. So let's just watch video number 3 and show everybody how far this tech can go. It is just insane, like incredibly cathartic. I think I've watched it like 3 times, and I find this experience enriching. But tell us, how many shots did these take? Welcome back, Tom. I was saying this is incredibly cathartic, beautiful experience. I've watched it many, many times, and I still feel the same feeling. How many shots did that film take?
Sorry, Anton, I can't hear you.
How's this? Can you hear me now? We'll keep trying until someone fixes this. Yeah, give me a thumbs up. No?
I can still see you. I do have your question here, so I could try and answer it.
You just broke the magic of the live, Tom. So just tell us how many shots that took. No, nothing. Can you show us more drones?
I can hear you.
Oh, nice. Okay, perfect. I don't think I'm going to ask how many shots that film took again. But is there any difference in the kit you use between film number 2 and number 3?
Yes. Yeah, so they basically run on the same technology. So again, I'm flying them through the FPV goggles, and they're being flown totally manually. But this is the drone that we use for that particular video. So this is a 3-inch FPV drone. So these are little 3-inch propellers, but they've got ducts around the outside. These are basically a lot safer to fly indoors and around people. And the ducts generally make them a little bit more stable as well, but it means that we also can't cause any damage. But yeah, the process is basically the same. And yeah, with the GoPro on top, we can still capture sort of beautiful indoor footage. Yeah.
So besides having to be incredibly precise, what are the key challenges of flying in a complex environment like that?
I think that the complexity kind of varies. So in that museum video that you just saw, it probably took, to answer your previous question, maybe 5 or 6 attempts. Quite a lot of the planning up front is what makes for a good video. So my goal with a virtual tour using these smaller drones is to capture the entire space in one sort of continuous shot. And a continuous shot is great for social media and stuff like that because it's a lot more engaging compared to a video with lots of cuts. So the planning up front and getting that flight route nice and smooth and floating around this space is where the challenge comes in. But when you get quite good at flying, you can sort of maintain that level of precision as you're going around. And another challenge comes from when you're trying to create more of a choreographed video. So when you introduce people into the mix. So, for example, we have recently shot at a coffee roasters in Cornwall, and there were sort of 20, 30 people, each doing different things around this sort of factory. That adds another challenge in that directing people and getting them to be doing stuff in front of the camera at the right time is quite complicated. And because a video can be, 3-4 minutes long, the challenge is you don't want to mess up at the very end because or else you have to redo it all over again. So that's the difficulty there. But again, when it pays off and you get it perfect, that's a really, really good feeling.
So it's like a flash mob, right? Like everyone has to be in the right position for when the drone comes in. Have you thought about putting something like a prompter on top of the drone?
So the key with these drones is to keep the weight down as much as possible because the flight time of one of these drones is about 3 to 5 minutes. So any unnecessary weight is removed from the drone. So we even take out the battery from the GoPro, which saves about 30 to 40 grams. And I've even taken apart little GoPros as well to take it from about 130 grams down to about 15 So it's basically removing all of the outer casing, all of the protection, GPS, all of that kind of stuff, just so it's basically a sensor and a PCB in a little plastic housing. So yeah.
You didn't have to go that far to tell me it was a bad idea. But I think you've talked about people, you've talked about coordinating spaces with movements, and we do have a video that demonstrates how far you can take this. So how about we watch it? Unfortunately, it is the last video of the day, but hopefully everyone can enjoy it. In video number 4. Incredible. My birthday actually shows up in that video, which is quite cool.
That was probably planned. Yeah, Amazon probably did that.
Thank you. So that is beautiful. Massive validation for you. A company like Amazon coming to you. I know you've recorded stuff for NatWest as well, which is a huge bank, probably comparable to Santander here in Spain. What's next? Like you just mentioned, this project in Cornwall, but you must be flying high, dreaming far. So tell us what projects you've got in mind.
Well, as I'm sure you know, a lot of the projects that are in the works, I'm not really allowed to talk about.
There's not much people here.
Well, something that I can tell you about is that FPV drones and music videos seem to go quite well together because of like the fast-paced action of FPV drones and kind of the snappy cutting that you can include these drones into. It works quite well. So we've been doing some music videos recently, and we've got a few more coming up in some pretty interesting and unique locations. So keep an eye out for that.
We definitely will. So we started by saying that we've gone through the short history of drones, 9 years only, but this tech is just starting, right? The talk before was talking about merging drones with blockchain, for example. What do you think it is next for drones in this context of?
Parts are made from 3D printed plastic, and you put them together yourself. So I guess that DJI did recently bring out an FPV drone, which is almost an attempt to bring FPV to like the mass market. But in my opinion, this new drone doesn't really compete with the lightweight powerhouses that we're flying at the moment. But something that I would like to see some more of moving forward, and it is actually something that we're working on as well, is combining both the power and the agility and maneuverability of FPV drones with a gimbal-based camera either hanging below it or on top of it. So that way you could have an FPV drone being flown by myself, the pilot, and then you could have a camera operator independently moving the gimbal around as well. Because again, I think that would be a beautiful sort of hybrid of the two technologies, and I can definitely see that happening at some point in the near future. Yeah.
Well, Talk 2022 will be displaying that technology in this same stage. So you're talking to a bunch of thought leaders in the filming industry. Most of them are at the forefront of what's happening. What's your message to them? What do they need to know about drones to make sure they continue being cutting edge?
I would just say, don't be afraid to use something like this. As I say, these drones do look a little bit, I don't know, maybe like because we build them ourselves and because it's lots of 3D printed plastic and stuff, they can look a little bit amateur, but it's not what it looks like. It's how it performs, and it's sort of the experience of the pilot, which is what can unlock a load of creativity for you guys. Because of all of the things I mentioned, the sort of unlimited freedom of movement and the ability to fly near people and fly through tight gaps and stuff, and And even in that video that you saw, we actually flew under a Range Rover. I don't know if there's many camera platforms in the world that can do that kind of thing. So yeah, get creative with it. And if you wanted to talk about it with us, then we can come up with some ideas together. So yeah, in touch.
Amazing. Tom, how can people get in touch, work with you? How do they follow you?
Cool. So Bad Wolf Horizon across Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or just head to our website. Feel free to give me a ring anytime if you want to talk about anything and discuss ideas and stuff. And yeah.
I think we'll put your contact up on the screen at the end of this, but thanks so much for being here. I'm sure some people will have some good questions for us, but otherwise, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you, Tom and John. Zaki, galderaren bat, any question from the audience?
Euskaraz.
Any questions from the audience?
Questions? So, you know, if that's okay with you guys, like, we'll leave it here for today. It's been a real pleasure having you on the stage. Obviously, and John with us here, but like Tom, we look forward to seeing you next time over here. We'll make sure that you bring with you one of these things, and then we'll have fun here, okay? And
Sounds
yeah.
good, yeah.
So yeah, thanks a lot once again, and you know, see you next time. Thank you.
Good to see you, Tom.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Eta esan bezala, hitzaldi honekin amaitzen dugu. 15 minutuko deskantxo hartuko dugu orain. 6ak laurden gutxietan segiko dugu ekitaldiarekin. Mikel Zorrilla eta Martina Ale.
This is the end of the first part of today, and we'll be back soon for the second part of today. We will be talking about virtual reality.
Kaixo, arratsaldeon berriz ere.
Good afternoon. We're back after the break and ready to move on to our next speaker. We're going to talk about virtual reality in cinema, exploring new audiovisual forms. With us, Martin Allais from Battlescar Film and Mikel Zorrilla, manager of Vicomtech. And they're going to speak in Spanish. So he's repeating again. The topic today is virtual reality in cinema, exploring new audiovisual forms. Martin Allais from Battlescar Films and Mikel Zorrilla, manager of digital media in Vicomtech. Martin Allais will talk about his experience in the design of Battlescar, discussing with Mikel Zorrilla. Welcome. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your invitation. I am Mikel Zorrilla, Digital Media and Communications Director in Vicomtech here in San Sebastian. And it's my pleasure to have here Martin Allais, the director of the film Battlescar. I'd like to make him an official, because he's the director, designer, and artist manager. He's director of Battlescar, short film. That's a virtual reality experience where a Puerto Rican girl, Lupe, is arrested when she arrives in New York in the 70s, and there she knows an American girl, and they together decide to create a punk band. You can see it in the Oculus store, which are the Facebook virtual reality goggles. And it was screened in Sundance 2018 with the first chapter. And then the premiere in 3 acts was in the Biennale 2019. You've been in over 30 festivals and you won different awards, Innovation Award in Montreal, special mention in Annecy Festival, and also a mention in the Geneva Film Festival. And I'm sure that today we can talk about all this in our conversation. Before I hand you the floor, I'd like to show you a video of the film, the trailer of the film, to give you a little bit of background. Let's have a look at it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's my baby.
Bueno, bienvenido, Martín.
Gracias.
Welcome, Martin. Thanks for being here with us. I'd like to start with our conversation. I saw the film with the Oculus goggles. I loved it technologically because it's very musical with this punk band and this sound immersion that makes you look to the side where the audio comes from. It's perfectly adapted, and also the perspective. There's a shot where you see the characters through a window, and it could seem that you could get your head through that window and see the different perspectives. How was this experience? Why did you decide to do such a project? Where did the idea come from? What were your references to come to this film? Oh, that's a big question. Do you mind if I take off my mask because I'm going to speak a lot? Is that okay? So how did it start? Well, when we started, we had really no idea what VR was about. And the director of the film called me one day. I was at my brother's wedding, and he said, well, I just got some VR goggles, and I think it's a format that will allow us to reinvent everything. Because before this, I've been doing animation, music videos, TV commercials, short films. That's what I do. Directing films in mixed media, but I had never done anything in VR. And it was late. It was about 2 a.m. and I had drunk a little bit, and I said, okay, yes, let's do it. And we started talking, and I left the party, and we started talking about the format, and I was really excited about it, and we decided to do a prototype. So with our own money, we decided to do it like that, and we found people who knew about the technical aspects, and we made a team and started to make trials. And it started off as a passion project on the side. And I called a friend that does VR, and he became very famous. And I showed him our ideas and the script, and he got us through to another guy who has an incubator in Los Angeles, which means that they take VR projects and turn them into presentations so that you can do pitchings to get financing. And about a month later, we were flying to Los Angeles to meet this guy because he liked the idea. So everything was a matter of chance somehow. Like it usually happens with technology in sci-fi, etc. There was not a specific theme. It was a bit, but I'm talking about 2000, beginning 2017, about 4 or 5 years ago. There were no Oculus Quest, so you had to really use a big machine and a huge computer because otherwise it wouldn't work. And we wanted to do something to tell a nostalgic story, a nostalgic VR from the end.
Y la calle. Tampoco fue una decisión.
From the end of the 70s, we talk about punk music, and this was just what we wanted to do because yes, we were really fond of the 70s, New York in the 70s, and Pat Smith, and we started to build this idea from there, and soon we realized that people were interested in it. So we spent a whole year pitching the film, and we were not lucky. We were in incubators, we traveled places, and we presented it in Oculus, in Facebook, in the San Francisco. And yes, they were interested, but from interest to funding, there's a very long path. So we kept improving the prototype, rewriting the film, finding out how to do VR, which tools, what software you need. We studied a lot. And, well, that's my son. Otherwise, he would be out. And we almost gave up because, like I said, it was a whole year going to markets, to festival, pitching the film. We have this idea of punk VR, and everyone said, oh, that's cool. But no one really bet on it. And in 2018, we went to the last market we decided to go, and we were about to resign because it had been already 1 year and a half spending all our free time because this is not my main job. And we had never had any experience. I had never created content, and you need to find funding. If you've never done that before, I mean, film directors, when you already have something, when you've already done a project, it's easier to get some financing. But the first one, that's really hard. And it's really the same even if this is VR. And that night I told Nico that I was tired of trying to sell something when people were staring at you with these big eyes, like saying, ooh, what's that? And that night we found, we met someone from Arte, the French TV broadcaster, and he started to ask us. And Nico said, well, if you're really interested, I can tell you about it, but I've pitched it so many times that I'm fed up. And the guy said, no, I really like it. I really like it. And he gave us a phone number. And In France, there's a lot of money, lots of funds for new talents and technology. And despite my accent, my family is French, so I have French papers. I said, "You're French? Oh, then you can get money because you're French. You get this funding." And in the end, we got it. But that's how things happened. And that's when we started producing the film. All of this is, like I said, it was something that happened a little bit by chance. But I'm telling all this because it is important. This side is important when you start working with VR. So there's a long path before you can really start producing. So this is something to think about, because doing a VR movie is more complicated than doing a traditional one. There are more dimensions, more layers, and you need a lot of time for reflection. This is not something you can just do at once. Yes, what you're saying reminds me to a graphic where you showed at the beginning. You showed me at the beginning. You were thinking about doing a valley. Oh yes, I did a graphic. That's right. Can we see that?
Aquí, en el que...
So this is it. This is the image. Oh, this is all the beginning. All the beginning. And it's really boring, slow. One weekend and another weekend, another weekend, and then the production of the first episode for Sundance, because we entered that with the script and the prototype, and we had just 2 months to produce the first 9-minute episode. It was crazy. We produced it in Lyon, and we got the funding through Arte TV, and they were the only ones who really bet on us. All the virtual reality content, for those of you who have goggles and know about it, is really focused on games and kids, family cinema. And this has nothing to do with it. This is 2 girls at the end of the 70s, drugs, rock and roll, and all the possible fundings, the traditional fundings, closed the doors on us because they focus on family films. And we met Marie-Louise in Arte, who's a documentalist. She was in charge of the art documentaries of the 80s and 90s. So she bought them, she produced them, and she was in love to have a film where we were talking about adult content, so drugs and so on. And she was really a milestone in our projects because she fell in love with it. And we did the first chapter. It's 3 chapters, and we just did a little part of the film because we had no budget. So we decided, so the movie is divided in 3 parts, and we decided to do just the first one. And after the first one, Arte gave us the funds to do the other 2 that we screened in the Biennale. Okay, so maybe we can see another video so you can have a perspective of how it could look like with the goggles, what it looks like when you put them on.
I couldn't sleep tonight. I was looking for pills and came across this old journal. I'll read you some of it. May 13th, 1978. Strike 1. I was in jail today. I met this girl there at the cell of the juvenile detention center in Midtown.
So this is the prototype. That is not the final cut, but you see, they look very ugly. You know, it was very cheap.
Debbie found me sitting on the corner, hugging my knees. Good hair color, she said. You shouldn't shoplift without a wig, though. Shoplifting is not for Latinas, I replied.
So that was the very first thing we did. That's how we started trying to sell the film with our own resources, our own time. I have an animation studio in Barcelona. We hired people, we created a team, and we started developing the film. It was highly personal and, you know, without really knowing where we were heading to. But it was very useful just to know what we were getting up to, and people started to understand where we were heading. And I think this was essential. There is a faith component there. Well, just like with any other cinematic production. And I think that there is a design component which is very important too at the end of the 1970s, punk design in New York. So please tell us about the design approach and about this VR format. Well, there is a problem with this format, and it is a problem that we have already experienced from the very beginning, and it is that it is very difficult to have a directorial vision. In cinema, you are telling the user, come here, now go there. But here, the world is completely different. And if you have ever been working with VR, there is not a direction, there is not a filmmaker, the space is there, and then you do not know what to do. There you are. You know, it's highly contemplative. It doesn't hook you. You get bored. And that's what it has been happening in the last 3 years. We come from the other side. We were cutting, editing with rhythm, with music. And that is what we wanted to introduce, how to translate our audiovisual language, the language we all know about, which has been there for always, how to attract it into the VR world. So we went to the theater. We took things from theater. Everything is black. In virtual reality, everything you see has to be model produced, and that implies speaking about weight. What do you mean? If I have to reproduce this setting in VR with every detail, it will be much, much heavier compared to putting just a light, you and me, and imagining everything else. The same thing happens in theaters. They just show what is strictly necessary so that the user or viewers can reconstruct the set or the setting. So that was the idea. And that was our baseline in terms of design. These are all theatrical sets, and let's try and say the minimum possible so that viewers can use their imagination to imagine that they are on a train in New York, but you are just on your corner and the train is coming. So that was the very first approach from the design point of view. And then research, and research. It is, well, not that different compared to a period movie when you have to research, go to pictures, what everything has to look like, the affiche, posters in the streets. We had to document everything. We had many different references, and to work with animators and 3D people modeling things, you have to be highly specific. That bin has to be like this or like that. No, we do not have enough rubbish, or that Coke bottle does not fit. It is not old enough. So you can spend ages. I mean, it takes a lot of time if you want to be truthful to the period. Well, here we can see some design details, the script, the scenario. That was the beginning. These are our drawings. So it was an act of faith. Little by little, designers and our crew got bigger and bigger, and our dream started becoming a reality, giving more and more detail to our characters. And from the production standpoint, we started just like with any other film. You start with the script, and then it has to be, you need to have the technical script, and then we have to go to animatics. Well, in animation, that implies putting drawings with the dialogues recorded so that you can have an idea about the length of the film or the shots you require. And that was also the case. Yes, I think that is what you can read there. Please tell me, how was the film welcomed in the different festivals, and what formats have you been working with in film festivals? Was it watched on a big screen in the movie theaters? Did viewers have VR goggles? Please tell us about the different formats and their advantages or disadvantages, because it can be an isolated experience with shared formats. So please tell us, what formats have you studied, researched into? What do you prefer? What has been more or less successful? This format has something good and something very bad. And the very bad aspect is that I can show the film to my aunt or my grandma, and if they do not have the goggles, and my grandma will say, but you have made a movie, and I cannot watch it. So disconnection, people do not have the right technology. So that is a huge problem. But the good thing is that in the different festivals we created in Sundance, for example, in the premiere, we created a room, Patti Smith's punky room decorated. So you would go into the room and you would find those goggles, 3 goggles. So you would go into the room and we decorated this with a theater designer. And there was a curtain there. And there you could take the goggles, and that's it, and you would delve into the experience. And that is great because it's some sort of installation, museum, and film at the same time. Something weird and new. And that, you know, people got hooked. You are in the space, then you go into a reality, you take the goggles off, you are still in that space, and you think that you are inside the film, and that is really great. But even if it's true that you cannot show it to many people at the same time, you can show it to just one person. So each person taking off the goggles in every festival. And you know, I was there with Nico. We would give them the goggles, and people took them off, and they started talking to you. Oh, I love this or that, and you could see, you know, the reaction of viewers. So it is just as if you had a restaurant and you were the chef, and as if you could see the people, you know, people eating whatever you have cooked. And that is something that a conventional filmmaker cannot have, that immediate response. So we learned so much from the very first chapter, because we started with Sundance, then we went to Tribeca, New York Festival, where else? To Chicago, and all over the place, many people talking, people crying, people standing up who started dancing, others were annoyed, you know, they were looking where they were not supposed to be looking, but we met so many people. We met other artists who were like, wow, awesome. It is true that it was risky, and we assumed risks. Very quick film, you get dizzy unless you follow, because there's typography, text, the light goes on, goes off. So, you know, the idea was to hook the audience, and producers thought that their language was not right. It was too quick, everything was too fast. People won't understand it, they said. And we said, well, if you don't get it, you go and watch the film again, like in real life. And that worked, because I think that more people got hooked than the opposite. And that was super interesting. So that was always the same format. Different types of installations in different festivals, and there we wanted to see the reaction of people 3 days in a row, talking to people, talking to viewers, talking about the reaction. And there were actors. Do you know who was there? This guy who did The Hobbit. What's his name? Yes, with blue eyes, you know, who worked with Quentin Tarantino. Elijah Wood watched the film, and he started, you know, he thought it was awesome. We took pictures together. So, and then we had conventional people, but we got this girl who was there in the 1970s, and there she was dancing. So all those experiences, you take them home. It is high-tech, but highly analogic at the same time. Yes, when we speak about format, In VComTech, we are leading a European project related to opera, not to cinema. But in one of the trials in Ireland, well, in this project, the idea is to co-create opera with opera professionals and with people who are in risk of exclusion. In Portugal, there are some people working with inmates in a prison. In Barcelona, there is an opera being made in the Raval with immigrants where the Liceu is, but where there is no direct connection with those people. And in Ireland, an opera is being made. And the idea is to take this opera all through the place, all over the place in Ireland, even to small villages. And their approach, this is getting into a VR opera. And they would like also, to go to different festivals with people using headsets. But we are also experimenting with social VR, where remotely, each of us with our headsets, we could have the feeling of being present as if we were coming together into a hall where we can interact with each other and watch the film at the same time all together. What do you think? Battle Scar with this format. We, both of us together, interacting. What could that generate? It is true that we are adding a bit more chaos when we add that interconnection, but it also provides different opportunities because it is true that VR can lead to isolation. Yes, VR is a highly individual experience. Right now, the best thing about Battle Scar is that Battle Scar had not been done before, and that is the privilege. In any field of the arts, just as when film cameras were invented, having been the first one, everything was new. And even if it was naive, the approach that, there is a huge beauty in that process. But it's true that there are many limitations. Technology for social purposes, well, I don't know if it is really there. Maybe now with Oculus Quest, the possibility is there for people to share a space. When we did this didn't exist. There you were carrying the PC, the computer, 800,000 cables. Imagine that you are in the middle of the desert with 300 cables. It is impossible. You start sweating. So that still has not been overcome. I have only seen one social experience, which was fascinating, a video clip where you are not supposed to do anything. Because if users are asked to do something, let's imagine interaction. And if then you have to be interacting with other people, then I think that 70% of viewers, of people, will get lost. You know how to watch a film. You know that, the credits start, that there are going to be characters. But people do not know anything about VR. People get lost. And that's what we saw even in, techie festivals. People were lost. So I think you need to know who your target audience is, first of all. In VR, in these last years, I've seen that the intention is very good. The movie maker, the creator, has an excellent intention, but sometimes it is completely disconnected to the viewers, to the target, and that is not social. If you are going to be showing your film to elderly people, to old people who don't know anything about computers, then all those 3 years of effort, they will be nonsense because they won't be able to understand. So that's the situation. I think that that's something that we cannot forget. Right now, we would need an experience where almost everything has been made by the user. When you are flying, for example, when you are flying and you are paragliding, you think you are operating the thing, but it is not true when you start doing paragliding. We had a video by Justice, and there were 4 futuristic characters, and then you ended up being one of the 4 characters, but in different rooms, and there you were with those 4 mates. You were in the video, 4 main characters, and you were one of them. And they were moving, they started fighting against a dragon, they play their music, and you are incarnating that. And the fact of embodying that was already interactive enough. People were yelling. It was like a roller coaster. You are not driving, but you are feeling everything. And it is true that the guy who did this had many technical problems. It is true that VR is complex. So if you want to incorporate the social approach, well, that is the only thing I have seen this experience, and it's true that it was quite difficult. But I think this is going to end up being incredible if we overcome those physical problems with the user knowledge, knowing how to handle the tool. That will be awesome. Then that will really turn into VR. You will be drawing with your colleagues, with your mates, drawing three-dimensionally, and then you will be working, and then you will be partying with that people. And that will be great, but we are still in the Pleistocene of virtual reality. There are incredible ideas, but then when they come into reality, there is a huge gap there. I understand what you say. It's not successful. Here, there are many different design elements, but let's go to chapters 2 and 3. That is Rosario. She was essential, Rosario Dawson. There. This is the final cut, the final film.
The junkies and the thugs. But there is no craftsmanship after Avenue C, just desperate survival, all the way to the river. No unwelcome guests make it out of here alive. I'm standing in Avenue D now, waiting for Debbie.
¿Puedes poner pausa un segundo?
Pause. For example, something very interesting in VR is that is tiny. Well, if you are shooting in San Sebastian, then you will have a general shot of the building, but here everything had to be done tiny, and then everything is like the other way around, the opposite. So here we are explaining where is this taking place in the Lower East Side in Manhattan, and then we go to the little corner where she is. So all those little tiny details were essential because we had to translate the language we knew and, and transfer it to make this possible. When I was watching the film, I thought it was highly musical. Punk music plays a very important role. And then I started thinking about another format. For example, a concert where we could be combining, we could have a live band and then the audience could have a VR experience and they could be, guiding that audio. I don't know. Mixing live with VR. What do you think? That mixed format, could that be successful or is that crazy? I imagine that maybe, I don't know if technology is ready. Well, crazy, this was crazy. We made it happen. And, well, it's true that then it paid. It's important. We were the first ones who made it possible. Yes, that is true. There are going to be many obstacles to overcome. It is true we had to overcome many different problems. and others now can learn from that. We wanted to generate an experience with this VR experience. We wanted to create a bar in LA with punk concerts, and then there in between, people could put on the goggles and watch it. Combine reality with something virtual, as if you were in Broadway, and we are going to be proposing something more than VR. There will be a bar, there will be a bar, a band playing music, like just as if you were in Manhattan. But it's very costly, it's very expensive, and then, how many people can you bring in there? So there is also an economic gap there. It is not going to be interesting from the economic point of view. So that was the idea, but it couldn't see the light. But I think that is just about to come. In Broadway, there are certain pieces where there is, the characters are there, but at the same time, they have motion capture. When you put the goggles, then the character turns into something different. And that, if you do it well, that must be awesome. That's incredible. I visited a place where you are in this space, you put the goggles on, and you are still in the same space, but then suddenly there was this giant, and he opened the roof, and suddenly you were taken elsewhere. Like a B-series thing. It's true that it's very expensive. That's why you can only watch it at festivals. And today we live in a world where you need to monetize everything. Maybe there are things that can be marvelous, but you can only enjoy them at festivals, because then you cannot monetize it. Well, I do not know that much about the industry, but a limitation in terms of VR is that it's very costly to work with this format. It's very expensive. Also, you need to have a specific device, a specific hardware. You cannot just work in any context. You have to be using a very specific technology to use certain specific goggles. So we, in our technology center, we are researching because we want to offer this interaction, real-time interaction between viewers, and also we want technology to be more simple and easier to operate in terms of the device, so that the experience can adapt to the user's reality without having to pay an extra cost for the movie maker. But all these problems, those are probably some of the problems you had to overcome with your film. But you were successful, and that took place already years ago. We were so lucky because we started in a world without Oculus Quest, those portable goggles, Those goggles, they have huge memory, and you can go directly to the experience. There are no cables there. The resolution maybe is not just as good, but you can carry them in your pocket, put them on. This film can be purchased in a store today, but that wasn't possible before. So it is true that it is not as easy as just having the technology. You have to make the film again so that it can be watched through those goggles. So this version was made after the version that we showed in festivals with another team, with another crew, from scratch. We needed to optimize the film so that it could be watched with these goggles. It was crazy. So that's where you see the advantages. If you do not have public money, this is impossible. We need public money. Because it's true that it is impossible to monetize it. This is not a video game for young people who are going to be killing dragons, and this is not Facebook neither. So we were so lucky because we could reach these technology centers and these subsidies that made it possible for us. You have been talking about that idea, about creating a bar. Yes, but it's true that when you watch the film with that music, but please tell me, what are other formats, technology formats you have been thinking about where VR could also be used or implemented?
So we spent 4 years doing this, going to festivals because of this, and we saw lots of things, but in the end, it's always the same. It hurts to say it, but in VR, it's mainly about video games and social tools and some drawing tools that Google bought, but narrative VR, at the beginning of this project, we had a dream. And I'm sure this will become a reality sometime, I have no doubt. But right now, this is this cool moment. We're at the beginning of the internet. It was a boom, and then nobody wanted websites, and then again, everything took off again. So I think we are now in this sort of valley, and then another peak will come. But now, unless you get European funds and independent technology centers are really investing in that. But other than that, and there's one animation studio in San Francisco, which is a big one, and that's their idea. That's their dream, to have films watched from the inside in the future, because that's hallucinating, to be able to enter the film. No, it's so strange that you sometimes can't even imagine it. And people say, I want to see the movie from a flat screen rather than that. But when that happens, it will be like a gigantic leap in the entertaining world. And that's where we're going, but we are not there just yet. And many things need to happen so that this vision becomes a reality. So for now, I think we will have more of this, little movies here and there, in many festivals, till the technology really enters the industry. I think this is the phase of the democratization of the VR. And then things will change later. And we also need people like you, because I am a visual artist. I'm not going to do VR all my life. Right now we are working on TV, we've done cinema, we've done stop motion. We are constantly experiencing with new things. But those who are really experiencing technology and researching, in technology, like you, I think that when the conditions are right, when the moment is right, it will be incredible. And the entertaining industry, or the image industry, will change completely. And do you think that taking this to the cinema theater format, let me see how I can ask this. Do you think a theater format where people all sit together and wear the goggles, or do you think this will happen in people's homes? And do you think it is important to be able to take such a format to cinema theater, so that the industry has a path that will give sense to the use of technology? Or maybe it's not important? No, I don't think so. Because going to a cinema theater would be like going back to the old format. I mean, if you have the possibility to have people doing and watching it anywhere in the world, why would you put them in a theater and they would crash on each other? I mean, no, I don't think so. I think this is a vision. I mean, to take that into account, you need to take into account what we already know. I think our sons, I mean, they live in Fortnite, and Fortnite creates events. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 18 million teenagers go there and see a singer, a rapper, singing. So, I mean, and there you're paying for an access to the cloud, and you don't need to physically be anywhere. And this is more feasible than having VR rooms. And I'm sure that some lunatic will do it, like 32,000 goggles and everyone there connected. But there you cannot move. That's the first issue. If you are connected to a cable, and otherwise, and you can also crash into other people. So you need some space. That's one. And do you think it would make sense to have that room where you can make sure that people have enough space to move around, or where you have real objects you can really crush, but that are integrated with what you are seeing? Yes, but that would need to be a parkour. In the last 3 years, some guys did something. They did I can't believe it was amazing. Do you know Ed Wood? The worst director in history. So they made up a story with that, and the closest to that. Do you remember affairs when you enter the terror trail, where you have different beasts that seem to be going to attack at you, and you get out? No, so they did that, but in a virtual format. So you enter a journey when someone steals you something, and you have chairs, and you really touch real chairs because they scanned everything and mounted it. So it's incredible. And they presented it 5-6 times, and they were too late because the gadgets were damaged. They had to restart. And when I came out, I thought, oh, you're my heroes, because his vision, I mean, he was ahead of his time, like 2 decades. And I think it will happen in the future, and it will be incredible. But right now, it's complicated. Yes, because we're talking about using 3D printed objects, and it's more costly. Yes, so you have one theater play with real actors on stage, and whenever people goes through, then you need to rearrange everything afterwards. And the cost of that work, how many times a day do you need to play it? So there's a logistic issue that we cannot solve yet. And that's why in a festival they were the absolute winners. But this is not something you will see outside the festivals. You won't see it in the streets. And since then, have you ever seen anything similar? No, we saw nothing in 2020. So no, we all used our goggles at home, and that's it. And right now, I don't know. I am just coming from Annecy, and I haven't seen all the VR selection yet, but I think things are more or less similar. I didn't see anything striking. Well, thank you very much. Yes, we are running out of time for this presentation. I don't know if we have any questions from the audience. Well, Rosario was sent the script, and this happened by chance. I mean, what we tell in the film is very similar to what happened in her life. Really, she lived in a squat house with her parents, with musicians, where Manhattan looked like a recently bombed city. And she really liked it. And of course, she charged what she usually charges, but with Rosario Dawson, you get also Rosario Dawson level funds. So if you have a star on board, then many doors open. So she was lovely. We met her, we shot with her, and she is, I mean, she comes as if she was at home. She says hi to everyone. She grew in the street, so you can feel that. And when we finished shooting, she loved it. And in an interview, she talked very positively actively about it. And it was a fantastic experience. It was really a very exciting moment in the making of the movie. And then we shot episodes 2 and 3, and again, it was great. So thanks to her, we could enter very good festivals as well. And she did it very well. Yes, I downloaded the film, I saw it, and many times I was interacting, moving, so I really advise everyone to do that, to see it, to watch it, because I watched it after our conversation and I really enjoyed it. Yes, that's what we think. That's what we say. Since it is a virtual world, if there's a physical bound, then you won't have back pain, you know? So we tried to do something that would allow us to interact from a more naive place, because the movie itself is not interactive. Everything happens the same way. But if you follow it, it's just like a normal film. And you walk on one scale and run from one place to the other. It becomes a very interesting aerobic workout. You feel that you are in a virtual reality where you move. So we broke these little myths. And part of our success in the festivals afterwards and comments of people was really beautiful, because we had this naive vision of what we could do instead of doing what everyone was doing, like in the conventional VR films. Well, Martin, Mikel, I think we're going to stop here. Thank you very much for being here. It's been really interesting. Thank you very much for your presence.
Pasó rápido, ¿eh?
Errealitate virtualaz hitz.
So after talking about virtual reality, we are now going to the last part of our event. In this last part, we are going to talk about the future of cinema. We're going to have now a round table with different people from Spain and abroad. Like I said, we're going to talk about the future. There are 3 references in the audiovisual sector, like Do Post-Production and Picnic, and the very well-known publicist Jordi Barès, an expert in new audiovisual technology for advertising. They are all connected remotely, and I hope they can hear us. Hi, Pedro Escalona from Trigital, Pepe. We are now at the end of our event. In the past 2 days, we talked about technology like artificial intelligence, blockchain, virtual reality, and we still need to talk about the future. What will the future look like? So we have about 45 minutes for that. And at the end, we will have time for questions. Thank you. Thanks to the organizers for inviting us. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Without further ado, because we have interesting topics to tackle, I'd like to present the people here with us today. And we'll start talking about the future of filmmaking. So it's not just filmmaking, but also advertising and TV as well. On the one hand, we have Pepe Avellan. Hi, Pepe. Hello. He's worked as colorist and post-production supervisor in series like Isabel, Apache, Vis-a-Vis, El Embarcadero, Sky Rojo, or La Casa de Papel, and a short film which was granted a Goya. And he's got a long trajectory in TV. In 2010, he founded with Fernando Martinez Puento Grading, the seed of his present project, Picnic Color, for image, sound, and effects post-production. Secondly, Jordi. Good afternoon. With 38 years of experience in audiovisual effects, he has been working in very well-known TV spots in the last years: Adidas, Guinness, Heineken, Carlsberg, Levi's, Ondas, Sony, and along, etc. And he has just launched his own project, Rotau. And you want to reinvent the content creation, focusing on the project and on the cloud, focusing also on team talent. And finally, Sergio Santos. Hi, Sergio. He's worked as video editor in different companies with a multidisciplinary background. He has worked in cinema, advertising, TV, video clips, documentaries. He has specialized in digital effects, and he's now effects director, composition director in the post-production. He has worked in Sky Rojo, Toy Boy, La Casa de Papel, and he knows a pipeline for TV series. And now in Do, he participates in international projects that must adapt to the demands of the on-demand video platforms. So this is the presentation of our three speakers, and I'm going to launch the first question. Virtual production with video game technology, drones that can recognize faces and avoid obstacles, digital interpretation, streaming, on-demand TV. The technology has completely changed the audiovisual industry, the way contents are created, but also the way the audience consumes them, and of course, what you do, the post-production. To focus on the content creation, what do you think are the main technological changes we are seeing and how they affect the audiovisual content creation? Who would like to speak? Any of you can speak. Pepe, I presented you first, so there you go. Okay. In Picnic, we mainly do TV fiction. And the main change has been the arrival of the platforms. Platforms are setting the technical specification of how we have to work, the order, safety. Everything has changed since 4 years or 5 years ago. What we used to do for conventional TV is very different. The specifications and the requirements are very different concerning security and also delivery specifications, how we must work from the set to the final delivery. The change is very important. Jordi or Sergio, you can talk. Concerning advertising, we've realized that social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok now, have transformed the delivery into a much more complex and sophisticated work, and it's having an impact in the way we shoot. At the same time, the expectations keep growing with the COVID and all the trends that the COVID has accelerated. The phase of shooting and data treatment will accelerate a lot as well. So, yes, there are changes and opportunities everywhere. From my side, working with platforms has changed our workflow. We are told that we must keep up with the conversion, and our pipeline can be integrated with other companies following the client's pipeline. But yes, the biggest change is in the quality. Some years ago, we were working in HD, and now we are 4K at 8K with color spaces. We shoot with a camera, and then we can change the sky. We can get rid of the clouds and have a big sunny sky. The quality of the image we have right now is incredible. Even if it ends up in an online platform and it's watched on the internet, which will reduce the quality a little bit. But the biggest change in the last years is the image quality, both for our work and both for the final product. I think it's incredible with HDR and everything we have now. It's fascinating. And this is the biggest change, in my opinion. And also the kind of softwares that we use every day that help us get a better shots. This is what I'd like to underline, I think. Are any of you already working in virtual production projects? Because we've talked about the experience in Mandalorian, and I think this will expand. Have you had any such experience in virtual sets, you mean? Yes, for Skyrock, the series we're working on, we've been working in virtual sets with other technologies like the real-time tracker. What we shoot is tracked automatically. And yes, we are using more the virtual sets and chroma, of course, with green or blue. But we are also studying LEDs, because in Mandalorian they used LEDs. And this is more and more frequent. Productions are demanding or choosing maybe more and more chroma, also due to COVID pandemic, of course. Because shooting outside with a lot of people is complicated, so shooting in chroma in a set with everything under control with a small team has led us to use more of that technology. So yes, we are using it more and more. And Jordi, in advertising, have you had any experience with any such sets with virtual backgrounds? We create content for real in HD, but in advertising, because times are so short in pre-production, and you do it, you mount it, you do it, and you dismantle it. So concerning logistics and changes are not so pronounced. So we've been at the brink of doing a couple of things, but in the end we realized it was not interesting. But maybe in a while, when we have more experience and there we have a couple of studies on how to use it, maybe we will start doing it as well. Yes, doing everything in 3D takes time. So sometimes a real set is an advantage compared to the digital one. Yes, but the advantage of, I think, is there. This is something that's happening. I think it's real and you're experiencing it, right? Or maybe you're thinking about using it in an immediate future. Well, we are thinking, and many series are planning to work with chromas, and LED as well is being implemented and used for the productions. Recording, chroma, and so on is now very, how can I say, it's very present. Yes, Jordi, you were telling me about virtual dubbing before. Maybe this is not exactly it, but it could be interesting, right? And how technology is impacting content creation. Yes, we have found tools that we had never planned to use in a certain way. And we've seen that they have evolved from an experiment or research to real production, being able to watch it on TV. And nowadays, we are seeing things in TV series where instead of doing a face substitution, they're using other technologies. And the next step has been about experiencing, and we have someone in charge of that in our team. So we are experiencing with translating from one language to the other and change the face. Let's say you start shooting a film in Chinese and then you decide to change to English. You don't only change the audio, but also the face of the speaker. The tests that we have carried out are incredible. For now, the problem is that it's too expensive. But yes, this is a service that will be done more and more. That's interesting. You were talking before about COVID. And of course, we cannot ignore it. It's had a huge impact in the world in general, not just in the audiovisual industry. But at the beginning, there was confusion and a collapse, but we quickly adopted the shooting protocol that allowed us to create content, and then with the together with the explosion of the huge consumption of these contents. How has COVID impacted in your daily work? What have been your problems, and what have you done? Well, right at the beginning, it postponed all the plans we had and all the series that were coming in by then had to be stopped for a moment. But the moment we started shooting again, of course, safety in the sets changed tremendously. And of course, you needed to learn how to work remotely, because at that moment we were shooting vis-a-vis, and we were not really ready. But for most producers around us, at least here in Madrid, most of them had to update, had to learn, and think about working remotely, and think how to use material in the cloud, and security as well, because I think we were not ready as we should. And this pandemic came here to change us, so that if in the future we ever find ourselves in a similar situation, we can react quickly. Yes, even out of the pandemic, this is a trend that's here to stay, despite the fact that people can move or not move. Yes, before the pandemic, we had already people working remotely for different reasons. And when the pandemic happened, when the pandemic hit, we all worked remotely for a while. Now we can be back in the office, but we have people in Madrid, and the new platforms that we've learned to use remotely and the data connection platforms have allowed us to be in constant contact with Madrid, and people who are at home are working with the machines here. We have a room where we only have computers, but there is nobody there. All the computers are working, but nobody is there. So either it's me or someone in Madrid. And in the end, the situation has now allows us to hire people everywhere. We don't necessarily need to have people that must physically be here, because we wanted to work with people from Germany or from Holland, and we couldn't bring them here. But now we can, because now we know how to do it remotely. Of course, working remotely was feasible before as well, but now we all gotten used to it. And sometimes working with 8K and 4K remotely in the images, it was complicated. But nowadays we have platforms that we can easily use. They've become bigger, and they allow us to have better control of the machine. So this is something that we will keep doing. This is not something that we will suppress when the pandemic is over. No, it will stay probably for a long time in our companies. This is something, we're not going back to the previous situation. Yes, I think this is important for companies like Duo or Picnic, and sometimes it's even crucial. It's the only way to do it. Yes, we started with this idea of communicating in the cloud. And in our company, we're all working remotely. I don't care where people live. There are so many possibilities now. So from the beginning, we organized everything on virtual service. Everything was done in the cloud. And when the COVID pandemic hit, it was like a blessing for me, because then I didn't have to convince everyone that working remotely was feasible. And when people started to be fired, it was a second blessing, because suddenly it was very easy to find artists available. It's true that things have been fluctuating, and what we see right now is that our technological bet has given us an advantage, and I think we still have a huge advantage. But the truth is, everyone is managing to work remotely one way or the other. Going back to the office for us means never going back to the office, really. We will have an office, but all our workers are invited to come. But if they don't want to, that's fine as well. And what we tell our clients is that we have decided to go find the artists we need and assemble the team we need for each specific project. Sorry. Of course, that implies many things, but the fun thing is that when you have so many incredible opportunities, it's great. And we didn't count on that before. So we've done things that we never thought we would do. So for me, there's no going back. Of course, we will do some things locally for whatever reason, but we plan on keeping working remotely. So we're going to tackle different aspects of the usual production from different points of view. If we now see things from the perspective of the consumer, which is something you often do, to see how they're going to react to your proposals. Again, talking about technology, smartphones, social media, interactive technologies in the homes, big format screens, etc. Concerning technology, there are many options. And concerning contents, the creation of series that have bigger budgets than features, the audience starts preferring series over movies because they can follow the characters' stories. From that point of view, we've adapted more or less to the use of our smartphone to watch those contents. But how do they impact your work, these habits? In my case, it's a matter of timing. There's more and more demand of series content, and we need to do things fast. It's not like you have 1 or 2 years for a long feature. No, you need to do things much more quickly because the audience is demanding more. And all the producers are looking for a lot of people right now, so sometimes it's complicated to find the right person. So that's what we have realized on our side, that the demand is increasing, that we have more and more work, that we are lacking people. That's a real problem. Like I say, we don't find people, and people now are used to consuming a lot. Before the pandemic, people were already consuming a lot of series, but now even more. That has multiplied by 4 maybe, because people spend a lot of time at home. Some people couldn't work and they were only watching series. So we need to be very fast and edit our projects very fast because platforms demand it and they need bigger volume. And things that are repetitive and that were not very attractive to people before are kicked out of the platform. So platforms demand more and more content, and they ask us to be fast as possible, because the show must go on.
Sí,
Yes, it's true. The structure of production is much more demanding, much more structured. But beyond that structure, that you need to respect the fact that the final user is going to be consuming at home through the smartphone or on demand and not in the movie theater. Does it change how you approach your work? Yes. No, sorry, Jordi, please go. Okay, television and cinema. All right, but in advertising, our goal is fast consumption and we need to reach consumers. So our distribution channels have changed. We are shooting and delivering in a different way so as to be able to deliver through different channels, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and whatever will be coming tomorrow. So there are many different formats, and we have had to change, for example, the shooting format so as to be able to keep on working with quality. In the environment of advertising agencies and clients want their contents to go further, not just 30 seconds in the ad. They also want it to be printed. They want the special editions for this platform or the other. So those different versions are becoming something huge. And also in terms of metrics, because companies are taking control of the narrative process and they are asking us so as to make them on real time and being able to have a real-time control on the platforms. So this is fascinating. Things are changing very fast. Pepe, what were you saying? Yes. We are thinking about content, even in terms of framing. It is not the same thing if you are watching general framing in an 8-meter screen or if you are using your smartphone. So you know how the shots are, if they are long or short, that makes a difference, or if it is a general shot. We simulate advertisements on YouTube pages so as to know where the play bar falls, so that you know the name of the person advertising this product has to be seen and has to be readable. We are recording with 4K, 8K, with those cameras. So it's true that for cinema, we have fewer and fewer people going to the movie theaters. Technology is important, but mainly for smaller screens. In the past, we had big cameras for big screens, but today that is for smaller screens. But that, you know, quality has to be there. We need to have a high-definition camera, but then we will end up being on the internet on different platforms, mobile platforms. It's very funny. Very often we need to do things which are very elaborate, but then on the mobile phone you cannot really appreciate it. At the end of the day, things are done either to be seen on a big screen or on a small screen. And quality checks have also changed a lot. Now things are much more demanding for any type of content. In the past, before, that was not an issue at all. Very interesting what you were saying, Sergio. Yes, it's funny. You three, you work, you do high quality work, always using technology, resolution effects. But once I read something, and somebody said that technology is the king, the queen, but contents are the king. So beyond your one thing or the other, there are millions of people with a smartphone who are creating contents consumed by many, many people. And they don't seem to care if the light is not good or if there are flaws in sound. So quality is not valued as much as content, as much as creativity. This is a bit more philosophical. Do you think this is some sort of democratization in terms of content creation? Yes, I'm convinced about that. We see today funny, curious things. Artists are following other artists via Instagram, and contents are so ephemeral on Instagram that it's true quality is not the most important. From the professional point of view, it is true that quality has been upgraded, but there is a disconnection with other material, other contents which are not professional. It's true that we reach incredible levels. And I see also a huge transformation. New directors, new generations come to us asking for us to shoot in cinema, analogic, and manipulate. They want us to manipulate images in a certain way. Because it is true that with all this perfection, we want something different. So there is this trend, this tendency, everybody wants cinema, like classical cinema. And we are shooting many things, even in 8 millimeters. I couldn't even believe it. And everything was mixed, cinema, 8 millimeters, and that's what they asked for, that's what they wanted. Vintage, yes, for example. Or it is like records, like vinyl records. This is going to define premium. If you want to be unique and different, maybe you will be using celluloid and you will be working with people who know how to load the camera, how to make special effects using that material with old-fashioned or with old lenses, for example. It's true that with a mobile phone, yes, you can do things which are very, very cheap. But it is true that if you speak about celluloid, it's different. There is this nostalgia for the past. Yes, it is true that many people do not want to go to digital. And that gives you some status. If you shoot in celluloid, well, that makes you a bit unique. I don't know if we running out of time. We were told that we needed to leave 10 minutes for Q&A. Well, there is something else I would like to ask. Changes, modifications in the near future. It is true that there are changes, modifications one day and the day after. So what is your forecast? Is there going to be any other revolution that you can foresee? If you want, I withdraw the question. Little by little, we are implementing more and more artificial intelligence, AI in terms of software, replacing faces, face replacements. There are films, and even here in Spain, there was this Spanish singer, and this lady had passed away, but there she was. We were able to recover her, and this is taking us to an unknown future. We are not going to be having actors on the set. AI is going to be playing a very important role, and it's going to make it possible for us to create very interesting things. So I'm expecting, I don't know what the future is going to bring. The future is tomorrow. It's not in 10 years' time. Things change very, very quickly. So let's see what's going to happen tomorrow. From my own perspective, I think that certain technologies are going to become standardized, because customers will need to be able to share things quickly in a different way. AI is already there, and it is going to keep on evolving. And I think that if there is something changing, is shooting and at the same moment to start the post-editing, post-edition, and post-production at the same time. And certain filmmakers understand technology better, and they'll be able to take advantage of that. They'll be able to offer coherent projects, well used and logically efficient. And then with this transformation, there will be people being to adapt, others won't be able to adapt. Everything starts moving, and we'll see where this takes us to. The most important change is how to manage content we work with. That has to be immediate from the very beginning, since we start shooting, how to manage all that stock, all that material on the cloud. Working with all that material is going to become more and more important. That's a challenge, I agree. 40 minutes, and I think that we should start now with Q&A, with questions. Can you hear me in the organization? Can you hear me? Pedro, Pepe, Jordi, Sergio, thank you so much for this round table. It was so interesting. I don't know if there are any questions here in the room. Well, I am going to ask a question. It will be the last in this event. Between Pedro and I think it was Jordi, you were talking about vintage, for example. But before we were talking about VR, virtual reality. And we were talking, well, I think it's interesting to see the connection with the future. Please tell us, what is going to happen in 10 or 20 years' time? How will films look like? Oh, that's so far away, but we are talking about the future here. Please make an effort. Talking about virtual reality, well, VR, I don't know if you agree, Pepe, Jordi, and Sergio. At the beginning, it was hard to accept VR. There have been 2 or 3 attempts recently, but it was difficult. We started with a project sometime with goggles, with virtual reality. The idea is nice, and we were speaking about it last week, but that is for the further future. I think that maybe my grandson, my grandchildren will get used to that, but I don't think that we are going to see that happen tomorrow, because telling a story, I don't know if the filmmaker wants to show something or underline something, 360 viewers having been able to control action, well, I do not see it. I think it's not going to happen or to become successful tomorrow. I think that we can get lost. There are certain things on the internet I was watching, and as soon as I turned my head, I was losing and getting lost because there were things in between. So I don't see that becoming successful right now. Maybe in advertising, yes, and in other fields, but not for the cinema or series world. Sorry, I interrupted you again. I think that virtual worlds, I agree with Sergio. No, that it's not something immediate or which is going to become successful. you know, in interactivity, for example, how do you want the script to flow in your film or in your series? That was a proposal, being able to decide if you go in this direction or the other. And I think that's interesting too, but very complex. The truth, I mean, and I am somebody who loves technologies. I have always found that very interesting. But there is very difficult to overcome, which is, you know, the narrative side of things, how our brains are connected, yes, how their connections are. And telling a story, we want to tell a story, we know how to do it. But VR is a different concept to tell stories. I think it's great for video gaming or for experiences. But from the collective experience point of view, I think that becomes even more interesting, because the leap forward implies that all the VR experiences are going to be personal just for yourself. So wherever there have been collective experiences, that's when it turns into something great. But it has always been something explored that has been more or less successful, generated a lot of marketing and a lot of buzz on the media, but at the end of the day, it has not been highly successful. In advertising, you know, the most important thing is how much you sell. So I am quite pessimistic when we speak about VR and telling stories. Once I had an experience with cinema, 5D, water was coming, the wind was blowing, and I said, okay, that's it. I've tested this, nice, but that's it. And then, you know, the goggles, and then I have my own glasses. Very interesting. You have to try once, but I do not see this for cinema, just as with VR. No, I don't know. That's not for me. Any other comments, Jordi? Cinema in 10 years' time. Well, that is very difficult. Well, we'll think about more pixels, more quality. We see how there are HDR images being used to improve the contrast, and as we move forward, I guess that we will be experimenting with color with holograms in further detail, and maybe that is, again, another area to explore. Format won't be changing that much, I don't think so. Well, we're going to stop here. Thank you so much to the four of you, Pedro, Pepe, Jordi, Sergio. Thank you so much for having shared this time together. Let's hope that in the near future we will be able to invite you and to have you here. Thank you. That would be great. Thank you. See you soon in San Sebastian. And now, with this round table, we are going to close videos, Zinemaldia and Technology. This is the end, but I would like to remind you that we are going to keep on working here in Tabacalera, working hand in hand so as to develop projects even further. Please come to us. Come and visit this building, Tabacalera. I would also like to remind you that very soon we will be showing the affiche, the poster. So, well, that's all. Thank you so much to all of you here in the building and those through the streaming. Thank you.